Hello and welcome to Talking Bottom, the Bottom podcast where we celebrate the sitcom from Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson, the sitcom that never makes its way onto any best sitcom lists. My name's Paul Tanter.
I'm Matt Brooks.
I'm Ange Johnson.
And this week it's Sout. So this is another one of the ones where the title of the episode follows the word bottom, but in a very successful way, I would say.
In a very successful way, yeah. So Bottoms Up was the other one in Series 1.
As we've said before, there's been ones that don't really work very well, but I think Bottoms Out is actually quite a good pun.
Yes, get your bottoms out. And they are outside for the whole episode.
Works both ways.
I'll just run through the synopsis as given by iTunes. After losing a bet, Richie and Eddie are forced to spend a week camping in Wimbledon Common, and the only supplies they have are a tin opener and a packet of chocolate hobnobs. Eddie's stomach begins to rumble at the thought of eating a Womble. ...
It's impossible to say hobnobs and chocolate before them without doing the impression,
You
isn't it?
have to do a line reading with that one, don't you? Yeah.
Right? Well, that plot's fucking awful.
It is,
I don't
yeah.
want to see that. If I hadn't seen this show, that sounds rubbish.
There isn't a lot that happens, though, is there? They go out, they've got the bottoms out, and they're going camping, and it's all because of a bet. And there's the flasher.
It could almost be the plot to Withnail and I. They have a delightful weekend in the country.
Very similar.
Just to give some background to this episode, this is the one that a lot of the audience wouldn't have seen when it was intended, as it was filmed along with the rest of the second series and then pulled from transmission shortly before it went out because there had been a murder on Wimbledon Common, and obviously this features Wimbledon Common and them being, harassed.
You just thought it'd be
violently.
bad taste or something. You had it
Yeah, I
close
think
to it.
BBC's decision for sensitivity.
Yeah, I think probably a wise one at the time. I wouldn't want to be the BBC person who was in charge of that decision, and there was a lot of publicity and feeling around that murder at the
Yeah,
time.
presumably Rik and Ade were very much in agreement. You would have thought.
Yeah.
How long was this delayed then? Because I think it went out at the end of Series 3, so that means it's like a 2-year delay or something.
That's right. I think this episode didn't go out on TV until 1995, so it was actually released on video in the UK before it actually went out on TV.
My memory with that going out, I saw it at the end of Series 3, and the announcer, the guy wasn't lying, as far as he knew. He said, and we'll be back with a new series of Bottom next year, referring to the 4th series of Bottom that never fucking happened. I was just so confused as a child.
You lying bastard.
Yeah.
This episode feels quite different to me to anything that had preceded it, in part because of the setting that they're in. Even when we've previously had an episode that's entirely been set outside of the flat before, it was mainly in the pub, which is a location we've already seen them in. So from the off, we're kind of out of our comfort zone with this as the audience, as well as Richie and Eddie being out of their comfort zone as characters. Now, when I see the opening wide shot, I'm more aware than any previous episode that this is a TV show.
It seems like a stage, doesn't it, right?
Exactly. Now, I'm sure the art department did a great job, and the trees and the grass are all very good props, and this may have even been the most expensive episode that they had made at this point, because they've got a pond and they have rain at the end and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's believable, yet you can tell it's a set as well. Yeah. You can buy into it.
The main thing is the sky backdrop.
Grey.
It looks like a studio wall, and it puts me in mind of an episode of Blackadder where Blackadder even references how bad the set looks and says, I'm going to die on an unconvincing grassy knoll.
Yeah. Maybe it's the same set.
Yeah. But also, in terms of the way it's shot, I wonder if the director and the producer said, look, we've spent a lot of money on we've got all of the BBC's fake plants props here. We've created a section of Wimbledon Common in the studio, so I want you to use as many wide shots as possible. They're walking on fake grass, so we're going to show that they are on fake grass all the time. So we're going to continually use crane shots to kind of show the area.
And make it feel like they're outside, I presume, as well.
Yeah.
That must be.
But because of the artificiality of the stage, or rather of the setting, it makes it feel a bit like a stage play to me, but not in a good way. Once the actors are on, you know that there's no changing sets. So you think, right, I really hope that this whole setting is going to work for this. They keep on going to these wide shots that makes it feel weird, because most of the time in Bottom, we don't go to these big wides. So Richie and Eddie look really small on the screen for a lot of it.
You're noticing that they're in raincoats as well for a lot of it, because people having the wide, you see the coat dangling. Yeah.
But what adds to some of the slightly awkwardness at the beginning is also they come on and then they're planted in the same spot for a couple of sections. Their blocking is just that they are stood next to each other while they deliver dialogue. And when you're shooting that in a big wide, it looks odd and dull. So it's only when the camera starts moving in for mid shots and the guys start moving around in the wide shots that things feel a bit alive and it doesn't feel stilted. In that way, it kind of feels like they're coming on and starting doing a play. And it made me wonder if, when they started writing this episode, if this was the intended live show that they were going to go on and do, if they'd thought, we'll make the live show something different, and then they went, oh no, this will just be a TV episode.
Possibly.
But it
Very possibly, because obviously they decided to do predominantly in the flat for bottom live.
I suppose if it's a set, just one set, might as well do the flat.
Yeah.
Really, than have something different.
Yeah. But the width of the stage that they're on and the wide shots really do put me in mind of a stage setting.
Sure. It's really interesting you say that as well. I want to talk a little bit about the comparisons of this episode in particular to Beckett's work, which they've themselves been fans of, particularly Waiting for Godot, which they have performed in. Now, if anyone doesn't know, Waiting for Godot is one of Sam Beckett's most famous works. Know a little bit about theatre background, but I've had to research a lot for this episode, so I actually don't know much, so bear with me. I want to kind of draw comparisons with all of Beckett's work and Bottom, but mainly this episode has some comparisons to Waiting for Godot. First of all, anyone who's seen it, it's two characters waiting around for something that's their own choice. They're voluntary there. They don't have to be there, and they can go at any point. There's a comparison there. They're both outside. They're by a tree. That's an arduous one, but whatever. So here's an example of what Theatre of the Absurd is, and see if you think it sounds like anything in particular.
Okay.
It's drama using the abandonment of conventional dramatic form to portray the futility of human struggle in a senseless world.
That definitely sounds like it sums up at least the first two series of Bottom, doesn't it? Yeah.
And also another comparison, the two characters in Waiting for Godot are wearing kind of suit-like things, but a scruffy version of them. That's something they've always kind of dabbled with, always dress up a bit smarter than they had any right to be doing. That's, Charlie Chaplin dressed smart and was scruffy as well. I think it's probably a broad comedic thing. Maybe that one's reaching a little bit.
Do you think this episode is kind of their nod to Beckett?
I think it's a homage, definitely. There's a lot of things. I want to bring up some topics here and see what you guys think. Okay, one of the most noticeable features in the play is the utter absurdity of their situation. They partake in clownish and nonsensical conversations. They absurdly wait endlessly for an unchanging situation to change. They occasionally discuss ending the wait by hanging themselves or simply leaving. Absurdly, they never actually take the action. The unavoidable conclusion is that existence itself is absurd. Philosophical questions that are sort of raised by Beckett's work that we can apply to Bottom, and we'll see what you could think. So do the characters, I'll say that's referring to Bottom and Estragon and Vladimir, the characters in Waiting for Godot. So do the characters recognise their actions are absurd, or do things seem normal to them? What do you think? In all of Bottom, are they aware what they're doing is odd?
It always seems that they're usually within their own world, so they think what is happening is normal. So
Richie certainly. I think Eddie sometimes recognises that what's happening is, obviously, he does say to Richie, you're completely insane.
Or like in this episode, he sort of, partly because of the fact that he's there through his own drunkenness, he even says, what's this all about? As though he can't quite believe what's happening.
Yeah, because you do wonder all the way through why Eddie's going along with this.
But I think Richie is definitely, as we've sort of said before, he goes into his own manic world and tends to believe his own fantasies.
And there is a bit of foretelling in this as well, because he actually describes what it is that the reason that the bet has happened is because he stuck a dart in his temple.
Yeah.
Isn't
yes.
it?
Yeah.
And then, of course, Richie gets much worse fate befalling him to do with a dart, obviously.
Several times,
in the back of the head, his hand,
and
down his throat.
One of the themes that you like to go over is the purposelessness of life. None of the characters in Waiting for Godot has a meaningful purpose. Waiting for Godot might seem to give the characters a purpose, but the fact that Godot never arrives renders their actions meaningless. Now, Richie and Eddie never accomplish anything or have any sort of change or advance in their characters. A similar type of thing. Like some characters in other sitcoms do advance, so like Only Fools and Horses, the characters get married, for example. The situations do change in Red Dwarf. They are always lost in deep space, but little things sort of change. With Richie and Eddie, nothing ever changes at all.
Yeah.
Trapped in their own, until, of course, you get to the live shows. But in the series, they never, ever get beyond where they are, bottom of the heap.
Yeah.
Yes, they're still living in the same flat. Nothing else has changed for them in terms of their relationships.
Friendship's another theme that's kind of touched upon in both the works. Each character is fundamentally isolated from the other one. Relationships go between sort of a fear, loneliness, and an inability to connect to the other person. That could be applied to either character in a way. Eddie doesn't really connect to other people, really. He's easier to talk to. But I mean, does he have any real lasting proper friends? He's matey with Spud Gunn and Dave Hedgehog, but they're kind of just drinking buddies. I don't think he's actually has a deep connection to anyone, and Richie desperately wants that sort of thing. And the problems that keep the characters apart from each other range from like physical disgust of each other and their own egos get in the way of things. These are themes massively in Beckett's work. Here's some questions for you. What is the best term you describe the characters' relationships? Are they friends, companions, master, servant, or just acquaintances, really? Are they really friends?
I would say friends who hate each other, but also love each other.
Yeah, it's that love-hate relationship between Richie and Eddie that I think keeps you coming back for more.
Yeah.
Because although they do seem to hate each other, they need each other, and that's at the heart of many
Absolutely.
a sitcom.
That's the next question.
So they're almost family beyond friendship because they live together. And we've often said the wife-husband scenario beyond even friendship with Richie and Eddie that they actually allude to a few times, don't they, throughout the series?
Richie even once says to Eddie, "You can't live without me, can you?" Yeah.
That's in contest.
The next question was, both characters constantly ask whether the other one would be better off without the other. Really, think about it. What would both the characters be doing if they didn't have the other one? Eddie may be homeless, maybe.
Nasty Linders.
Richie may well have killed himself.
Oh, that's sad. I don't know whether Richie would actually ever go through with it. I think he's always just sort of made it to make Eddie feel guilty.
Yeah, if he didn't have the audience, maybe he wouldn't kill
I
himself.
think they might wind up in separate hostels, like they're both in a different YMCA.
Then linking back to Beckett and the tramp idea, I think Eddie would almost certainly be on the streets, alcoholic, maybe going from place to place, but not have a real home to call his. Sure. Whereas Richie would still have Auntie's flat, but he'd be so desperately lonely. You're right.
I thought Richie would wind up as a rent boy.
Why is Eddie holding him back from being a rent boy?
Would he have the confidence to do that though, really? Because he's not. I wholeheartedly think that although they make jokes about Richie's masculinity being slightly homosexual and effeminate, I do think he's at heart hetero.
Yeah, I think he's just desperate for
so
human contact.
I'm not sure that he would sell himself for male gratification.
I agree maybe with Series 1 and 2 Richie, but Series 3 Richie I think would probably embrace his inner drag act and get out there and start sucking cock.
Well,
really, why?
The live shows touch upon it repeatedly, don't they? The idea that Richie's trying to get Eddie into bed, and this episode is the first where it's actually explicit that Richie sort of suggests A, getting into their underpants, B, there's the it's a bit cozy, isn't it, in that tiny tent, and then why you've made me forget my sleeping bag, and Eddie actually actively accuses him of trying to get him. It does
really seem like completely jumping to conclusions on Eddie's part, though. Richie does seem genuinely like sort of bemused by it. He's rolling his eyes like, "No, Eddie, no."
Up until the point he tries to give Eddie a kiss before they go to sleep.
I think that's just him being a child.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
I don't know, though, because why is that an instinct to him? Because it's not like he sleeps next to Eddie any other time. Or anyone. Yeah, exactly. So it's not like he's used to giving someone a goodnight kiss.
Actually, I suppose it probably could be instinct. Bearing in mind he's just done a very childish kind of go-to-bed song beforehand, maybe.
It's probably not his own thing. That might well have been his auntie.
Yeah.
Or the servants.
Yeah.
Some nonsense.
Yeah, true. But I think almost certainly this is the start in the series of much more. Well, I don't know. They do allude to it throughout series 2, don't they? Obviously, with the you never had a bird either of you during Parade.
Sure.
And Eddie's reactions, though, in this are very much like the live shows, I think. Certainly in Hooligans Island.
Very British and prudish, doesn't he? With any homosexual type things. It's like no. Like, not outraged, but just kind of doesn't know what to do with his body.
Yeah.
Gets very awkward. It's almost like our parents' generation who try to tacitly approve of gay people but really don't know how to react around them.
And actually Eddie does, as you say, start by saying, what is all this about? The last thing I remember was having some pints at the pub.
Yeah.
If you really want to go dark, as Richie imagined all of this bet with Mad Ken Starlin just to get Eddie out of the house.
That is
and
amazing.
into the campsite, and just for a bit of fun again, in similar ways
like
to culture.
Womble, yeah.
Has he actually fabricated this and told Eddie in a drunken stupor, "Oh, we've got to go camping for a week"?
That had never occurred to me. If at the end of this episode, Richie had then revealed to Eddie, actually, I just made it all up.
Who is Mad Ken Starlin? We've never heard of him before.
Or after. This is some stuff I found on the internet that is describing Beckett's work, but see if you think it applies to Bottom as well. Suffering is a constant and fundamental part of the human existence in Beckett's plays. Every character suffers and suffers always, with no end in sight. The hardships range from the physical to the mental, the minor to the extreme. Suffering drives some men to find companionship and causes some others to abuse their companions to lessen their own suffering.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's Bottom in a nutshell, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely.
It's not like they've just stolen all of these ideas and done it. They absolutely said from the off that Bottom was inspired by Beckett's work.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising, but that is amazing. I've never really looked into the intricate detail of the drama surrounding Beckett's work.
Okay, I've got a little mini quiz. So the game's called Beckett or Bottom.
Okay.
See if you can find it. Okay. Right, so I'm not going to say the characters' names, so that's a giveaway. Right, so first one. Let's go. We can't. Why not? We're waiting for Godot. Any word? Which one do you think?
Beckett.
Yeah, that one was Beckett. Okay, so that, yeah. Right, now, here's a real one. Well, that passed the time. Well, it would have passed anyway. Yes, but not so rapidly.
Beckett.
It is Beckett.
Yeah.
Yeah, just feels a bit...
No, but that feels like a Richie and Eddie exchange, yeah.
Here's another one. Well, what do we do now? Wait. Yes, but while we're waiting, what about we hang ourselves? That'd give us an erection. Ooh, an erection.
Fucking hell.
Is that in the live show? Is that Bottom?
No, it's Beckett.
That's Beckett,
That's
right.
Beckett.
Okay. That would give us an erection. Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Last one. We're all born mad. Yeah, but some remain so.
I'm going to say Beckett as well.
Yeah, they're
all of these
yeah.
Beckett,
All of them
is
were
that
Beckett,
okay.
No, but
But you're right, that could be straight out of a dialogue between
Yeah.
Richie and Eddie.
Especially the first series. I feel like the first series was the darker one, where they sort of embraced the loneliness of the human condition and the sad existence of their lives and that kind of thing. And then as time went on, it progressed in a slightly Homer Simpson manner towards more stupidity, slapstick and so forth. You know, you can see the progression from series 1 to series 2 to series 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they also wrap up in all of this what it means to be British, don't they? So there's obviously taking those sort of points from the absurdity, but it is grounded in reality in as far as their situation is in Britain. The weather's always crap and they've got to find ways to not be bored most of the time.
It's like a tweaked reality, isn't it? You know, there's fundamental things that are similar, like they all have the same politicians and newsreaders as us, but they act like psychopaths and cartoons.
I wonder if you got a group of students who were studying Beckett and you put them in front of this episode, what kind of comparisons they would draw, or if you told them that this was written by Beckett, whether they would
just give them the script or something.
Yeah,
because there's toilet humour in Beckett stuff. The toilet humour and intelligent humour, they aren't mutually exclusive. That sounds really stupid thing to say, but like you can draw in a certain crowd, but put a lot of subtext in and get them thinking about other ideas and stuff. You know, it's subtle, but some of the writing in Bottom is tremendous.
Yeah, it's always annoyed me when people accuse Bottom of being base or slapstick, and that as if that's all it is, dismissing it that way, and it's absolutely not. There's so much more when you go through the layers. Obviously, there is the base laugh that you get from a toilet gag. If you go beneath the layers in the writing, there's so much more to Richie and Eddie than just hitting each other with frying pans, although that is hilarious.
It's very much of the Bottom universe that the reason that they are there is because they've lost yet another fucking bet. Their luck when it comes to bets.
Good excuse to get them out and doing something what they don't want to do.
But from someone with yet another brilliant name, do you think Eddie Hitler and Mad Ken Starlin bonded over their
names?
Over their similarity of their names?
Oh, well, they were drinking in the pub together.
Yeah.
So, what's your name? Oh, mine's a dictator too.
How's your mother?
Yeah, there's a joke in here which I think is completely misfires and there's no reason to. I think it's good when they first arrive somewhere. and like, oh no, this place isn't very good. Let's move on. Takes like one step. Here, that's better.
Just steps over the dog shit.
Gets no reaction. Yeah, you don't. Also, the dog shit. You don't even see the dog shit.
I
No
was
shot
gonna
of the dog
say-
shit. They've used up all their budget on the set. I guess.
Do you think that's why it misses it? Because the audience's attention isn't drawn to the dog shit explicitly.
Maybe, yeah.
And they're sort of still laughing at Richie's "we're not French."
Well, I think the comedy of them seeing the dog shit comes from the size of their reaction as they loop their eyes around it. And maybe if you saw the dog shit, then that might detract from the physicality of their actions.
Yeah, that must be the reason why we don't see it. But maybe it's just that it kind of goes over their heads.
Now, a little bit of information that comes out in this says Eddie's got a girl that he's seeing.
2 girls.
Yeah, a couple of girls. I didn't get why he had to go to the chemist when I was little. It's something that...
Right, yeah.
Just, what? I don't understand. Is he ill? Or yeah, it's condoms.
Back in the day when you could only get condoms either from chemists, from pub toilets, or from your hairdresser / barber.
And they've mentioned previously that they're in the Boy Scouts. And then there's a lot of that sort of thing here when they're drying out the hobnobs over the campfire, aren't there?
That's such a British version of something cliche American, you know?
Yeah, string
Knowing
hanging between two sticks.
And pegs.
Knowing Richie as we do, I wonder if he was in the pub with Eddie and Mad Ken Starlin and assorted other people, and he was regaling them with one of his fictional Falkland stories. And at that point, Mad Ken said, "There's no way you did that, and you couldn't even survive in the country for a week." And from that, some kind of bet was born, which is why it wasn't for £50 either way. It was for £50 or a forfeit. And the forfeit was... it was kneecaps as well, wasn't it? Yeah.
I'd rather hang on to my kneecaps. It's the line, yeah.
But how is he going to know whether they're there? It's not like they're
I
taking
guess
any
maybe
evidence
he's
or...
looking at their flat or something. Maybe he's living in their flat for the week.
They could have just gone and stayed with Spud Gun for a week, couldn't they?
Absolutely.
Probably be just as much dog shit around.
Eddie probably didn't even know where he was going until he got there, did he?
Well, he's brought the bottle of scotch with him, so he knows they're going somewhere. Although that could just be in his pocket.
Yeah.
I think that he's got stuff sewn into his...
But he's brought the hobnobs as well, so
it's inconsistent if he knows the plans or not. He brings the tin opener.
He's remembered the tin opener because Richie's told him to. So he does know they're going to go camping, but he presumably thinks it's one night.
Sure, not a bloody
and
week.
Maybe not just in the dog's toilet in Wimbledon Common.
They have found the shittest corner of Wimbledon Common to camp on, haven't they? With its fetid pond nearby.
Yeah.
And I know generally the studio, in my opinion, doesn't look that convincing, but I do like little details like a trolley in the pond and a traffic cone up a tree.
And bin bags. I couldn't quite make out what it is, but it looks like it's sort of the top of a pram or something, like a canvas in the background.
The script book says something like it's filled with rubbish. You know, like it really emphasises the fact that this is basically a dumping ground for fly tippers.
Another reason why they'd be using the wides, they just want to show off this set they've put a lot of time into.
That's kind of my thought. I wonder if their thinking was, we've paid for it, we're going to show it.
We're going to use it once, only going to use it once. There's a bit where Eddie turns to the camera and break the fourth wall to do the wanker sign. You see him turn away in the wide before you see the camera angle that he's turned to.
Right,
So like he's turning away from Richie to nothing. In Richie's reality, that is what Eddie's doing. And I think it's interesting when characters break the fourth wall. What's happening in the reality there? You know, like Deadpool does it, and Colossus says, "Who are you talking to?"
Yeah, I think Scrubs used to do that as well. You know,
Did they ever do it? I mean, they did it in a Morecambe and Wise tribute show called The Play What I Rose in the Wyndham's Theatre for years. And there's a bit where he turns to one side, starts talking to the audience, and the other one goes, "Who are you talking to? What are you doing?"
Right.
And he has to go away, keeps trying to go to another room to do it. They never question it in this show, but is this Eddie just being drunk and stupid, or...?
They do a similar thing once in an episode of Bottom, which is when Eddie turns to the camera and says, "Because we don't want to get into the shit on this one."
In Hull.
In Hull, and Richie sort of looks where Eddie is talking as though he can't quite work out who he's talking to.
Yeah, he actually acknowledges that Eddie's done that, whereas he doesn't in this, and he hasn't previously when they're in the flat and Eddie addresses the camera. Because he sighs as well. He does another sigh at the top of the episode, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
So it is Eddie mainly who breaks the fourth wall. That seems to be an accepted thing that Eddie's sort of we're watching through Eddie's eyes almost.
Yeah.
He's kind of the everyman, sort of. He's not by the progression of the show, but he is kind of the norm in the comparison to Richie to make him seem more weird, I suppose, at the beginning anyway.
They may have only done it 3 times in the episode that I could count, but I really felt the use of the musical sting to get us to the next part of the story. Probably used in part because they were restrained by the location. We need passage of time. We can't just go to a different location, so we need the musical sting. But it was something they then go on to rely on a bit more in the next series. But I really felt it in this one. But maybe it's because I was looking for it.
There was a couple of things they do that they've not done before in this episode, like the slow-mo of the hobnobs flying into
really
the
dodgy,
pond, and
like,
that weird sound effect of the whistling through the air.
Yeah, I don't like that slow-mo. I suppose it's because if they played at normal speed, you would miss it.
Well, there's something in here that I thought it's kind of odd and interesting when the squidgy sleeping bag session's mentioned. Richie breaks down what sarcasm is, step by step to Eddie. That's something weird, but I liked it as a kid. I knew what sarcasm was.
Yeah. I think it's because Richie likes having his sense of superiority over Eddie and wants to feel like he's his intellectual better. But it's funny that Richie then switches between that and his spoiled child syndrome of, I forgot something, it's not my fault, you made me forget it.
Oh, yeah.
That's such a spoiled child thing.
Accusatory. I think it's also something, I'm going to speak for all women here, like, well, I do it all the time. Just blame someone else for what you've forgotten to do. I don't know if it's... that can't just be a female trait, can it?
No.
But I'm always doing that if I misplace something. Where have you put that?
It's a good subversion of a very big cliche of, you've forgotten the tin opener. Of forgetting the tins. Instead, I've forgotten the food. So that's a big deal. That's a much bigger deal.
But makes Eddie not only totally blameless,
you make me forget it.
Eddie did the one, that whole thing of you had one job. Eddie did the one job he was given. He brought the tin opener.
Yeah.
Richie didn't do his. Although Richie did bring a load of useless shit in his backpack.
Absolutely, because he's ready to go camping and he needs a mallet for some reason. There's also, from the very top of the episode, they're arguing, aren't they? They arrive, Eddie's annoyed, why are we here? Arguing about where to pitch, arguing about food. They're hungry.
Yeah, he just walks down those hobnobs like a fucking animal.
I want to mention the hobnobs. He never stops stuffing them in his mouth in the entire sequence, even when he's crawling out of the tent. As he's about to swing and punch him, Rick's swing is like going towards the packets, but Ade's still stuffing the hobnob into his mouth.
As he's eating them, it's not like each one is an individual biscuit. It's like they are a solid mass. It's like the way someone eats an apple, that you have to cram the entire thing into your mouth. He's eating it as one solid mass.
And he just so Richie can't get any of them. It's
I'll
literally
eat
that
quickly. I don't even want them.
Yeah, it's that childish thing of just stuffing them into. It's like a big brother doing that just to stop you getting at them. Not that I've got a big brother and I know what that's like.
The way he pronounces chocolate hobnobs reminds me of Rowan Atkinson pronouncing Bob.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where it was to come from. Do you think it is something that they would have said during the script meeting, just like they're going to say it in a funny way? Because it is an interesting word, isn't it? And they've used hobnob before. Hobnob?
Yeah.
No, I've got a normal one.
Yeah. That's in the live show, so it is a funny word.
Oh, it's in the latest series as well. Have another hobnob, ooh, you are evil.
That's right, yeah, it's in the very last episode, isn't it? So they obviously find that amusing to be able to say knob, I think.
Any excuse for a knob gag, isn't it?
There's a couple of injuries to Richie which come out of nowhere that are fucking horrific. There's when he's fighting with Eddie while he was in the tent, and then he for some reason thinks he's flattered him completely like a fucking idiot, and then
he really relishes like
he's
taking that pole and having it all the way down his back and then whacking the tent.
He's not only whacking, he's sort of stabbing him with it as well. It's quite horrible. And then Eddie just scarpers and Richie gets his eye impaled on the remaining,
because you see it in the front of the shot, you don't know whether it is going to be picked up for a weapon or what, but I have to say, as soon as you see them struggling for the hobnobs, you get that sense of the movement and where Rick's head's going to go.
Goes in deep, doesn't it?
Every time it still makes me wince, even though I know what's coming.
That when Richie does a sort of comedy Popeye swing and gets the hobnobs instead, it makes sense because his depth perception would now be off as he's got an eye sort of gouged out.
I hadn't thought of that,
It does look a little bit obvious that they've had to like manufacture him hitting the hobnob packet when he does that swing.
There's a really weird, out of character, good shot of the hobnobs sinking with them out of focus in the background falling over.
The deep throat gag felt like Rik and Ade almost. Ade doesn't seem like Eddie with that. He seems like himself.
Yeah, and also Richie says, that is the film I meant.
Yeah.
What? Where did he bring that up?
I think it's definitely a gag that they've had between them, don't you think? A lot of this show, this episode, does have these sort of gags going back and forth. Again, similar to how they do in the live show. It's
Yeah.
a great gag. They do that about the jiu-jitsu joke, don't they?
The pygmies one, the jiu-jitsu one. It seems like there's a lot of one-off gags that you could lift out. They have nothing to do with the story or plot, but are just one-off ones that you could drop into any episode or a live show if you wanted a laugh and you wanted to pad it out a bit. None of them are sort of huge laugh ones. They're all kind of mid-level.
I think it's just like the same thing as stand-ups have a bunch of things in the back pocket. They've performed for years together. They have loads of gags,
Right.
sure.
It's the last episode of the series as well, isn't it? So maybe they've just sort of had this sort of surplus of a few really good, they are good gags, so where can we put them? And then going back to what you were saying about Beckett and the idea that they're just having clownish conversations as well. Like, again, it's similar to Sup when he starts talking about the Indian name
stuff, yes.
The Amazon Indian name, that it's a very similar thing where he comes up with squatting Neville, but it is all very clownish and doesn't really mean anything, but it does make sense to Richie and Eddie in that time because they're obviously about to go hunting.
It's weird, isn't it? The inconsistencies of Richie and Eddie's intelligence with each other. Eddie suddenly believing Womble's are real. Completely. He's like got a child's mind in many cases. Then we cut to some stock footage of a hedgehog where all the budget went out.
Now, do you think that was stock footage? Or do you think they hide in a hedgehog with an animal wrangler, film the hedgehog running in some of that grass earlier on in the day?
An insert then at least. It would have.
It's a very tight shot, isn't it?
You only see that one shot of it, and then they react to nothing for the rest of it.
It's a very obvious cut, isn't it? Like, it's not like that hedgehog's been there, in the studio with them.
Why does Eddie seem so happy and excited at the prospect of an X-rated Womble? What would that be? Like the very Honey Pot adventure or something, I suppose. But what would that entail? Horrible. Why would you?
Maybe the Wombles used that condom that Richie found in the pond. Maybe that was Uncle Bulgaria's.
That's one of their ones, yeah.
Richie says to Eddie, "You're so what sounds like swazi-zoom."
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Soi-disant.
Okay.
Soi-disant is what it is.
Yeah. What does it mean?
I assume that's French.
It is French.
Right.
Soi-disant means self-styled or so-called. So if you were to say that you're a doctor but you haven't got a PhD,
right,
or have ever been to medical school,
that would make you just a fraud, surely.
Yeah, it's essentially somebody saying that there's something that they're not.
Okay.
So within that
Richie
context,
is. The fucking nerve of him calling Eddie that. That's exactly what
it makes no sense. It's
Do
a
you-
bit like a sort of Del Boy thing that I think he's just misusing the term soi-disant to mean something else.
And with that, I think it's time for a word from our sponsor.
We're always out, seeing to all sorts of gas appliances. There's this whole range of plans called gas service care. Heard of it? One time it's seeing to a water heater, another time it's a whole central heating system, or a fire. All service care plans. We're very well trained, you know. Have to be, for all that equipment. It's not just service, you know, it's gas service care.
Ring Gas to ask about service care plans.
The Red Indian stuff that they bring up then, as you say, it's reminiscent of the Sup episode. Weird, both the S's episodes have Red Indian stuff. Brilliant joke of the reason they're doing the Red Indian scream, they've got a mouthful of hedgehog. Is it racist? Nah, I don't think so. It's mentioning Red Indians. I like the how do you eat that, all that stuff, and then Richie goes off on one. So no, they say how wonderful this was, blah 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 blah. He calls it Mrs. Sitting Bull, and then there's a bit that's so strange. He says, "Oh, how was Roger's prep school, by the way?"
Yeah.
Roger Sitting Bull.
He goes off in another flight of fancy, doesn't he? And that almost harks back to the Elm Tea conversation as well in contest. That idea of, well, what would the gypsies call this? And they'd obviously say, how the bloody hell do we eat a spiky hedgehog? It's quite a similar dialogue.
It put me in mind of Little Johnny Cartwright again. Once again, Richie's in his head and believes this stuff. He's making up as he goes along, but it's true to him,
Yeah, and again, it's another him trying to be middle class in comparison to Eddie being working class, because he actually says, "Oh, you wouldn't know what I'm talking about because I'm talking about
social circle or something." He says,
Still manages to squeeze in some homoeroticism with his big flap down the front and big flap down the back.
He's getting so excited. I think that's just an attention thing, and a child is playing games and just being a bit silly. I don't think he really is
a kid wanting to play dress up.
Yeah.
Right.
Cowboys and Indians. That idea of being totally consumed by what he's going to be doing, because he always gets overexcited, doesn't he? And it wants to push it to the next,
it's always
to the nth degree.
From 0 to 10, doesn't it?
I always assumed that once he wanted to get a biro out and draw on his nipples, that was when he was going into the realms of... It's almost like we're going to oil each other up here.
Even Richie recognises by Eddie's reaction that that's pushing it a bit too far, though. He does it with the sardines as well, doesn't he? It's only other people's reactions where he actually realises that he's talking nonsense because he just lets his mouth run away with him. It's other people's reactions that make him check himself.
Eddie does suggest that Richie goes and bores the hedgehog to death, which Richie actually did. Oh, okay, yeah, well, what would you have done there, Richie? What on earth would he start talking about the Falklands or something to a hedgehog?
The dart in the back of the head sequence.
The darts are great, and
that whole sequence is like classic bottom physical comedy that could be from a cartoon or a Marx Brothers film or anything like that. Head, face goes in the fire, hand impaled on rock. I like that they actually repeated the same gag, the whole, oh no, I've hit you the first time, and then the second time, but somewhere else.
There's a delay, isn't there? There's a pause. Basically, some sort of wide shot, and then there's a close-up of Eddie firing the dart, and then it cuts to the wide again. And just that editing, we haven't even seen anything, that makes me laugh, because you can see it a mile away. And they kind of twist it, don't they? Because they hold back the delay of where it's hit him.
And
so you expect, did it hit him? But, I thought he was going to... I see now, and he's not reacting in pain to it.
In the first one?
The first one, he doesn't react to it, it's there.
Then
you can hear it in Rick's voice and the reactions. He's playing it so well.
He plays it slightly kind of... You can hear the kind of... in his voice a little bit,
like he's constipated.
A horrible twisting, tweaking sound when it's coming out the back of his head. And I didn't see the fire coming as well. It just
a very good use of the outdoors as well for all the setups. And I know you've sort of said about the wide shots and everything, but they do use that space really well, I think, in that sequence.
For that sequence, brilliantly. I mean, all the way up to the conclusion of it with the final dart Richie initially swallows, but then when it comes out...
That's all in his performance, the sound effect, and that's great, isn't it?
The conclusion of that, where eventually Eddie gets it to fly out, and again, we're back into sort of Acme Roadrunner animated comedy.
It reminded me of something from Space, those sort of little weird whip pan type things where it's all ricocheting off.
It's definitely a cartoon thing where the bullet flies off various different objects. Like, I think it hits about 4 different things before Rick's arse.
It's a very good thing that you don't notice the first time. When he pulls the dart away, he throws it into the water. He gets the fish, doesn't he? How does he see the fish? He puts his face in the water and his eyes
murky, horrible water.
There's a fish in there.
I'll just open my eyes underwater in this fucking cholera-ridden, germ-ridden thing full of condoms.
They don't have a fishing rod, so they use a net or Eddie's vest, which defies physics. They tear it off. It's in the script as well. They both look confused at how that's happened. Like, what?
But again, that's that wonderful absurdity, isn't it?
It's a time-saving practical thing as well. They don't have to have him taking his top off and cutting stuff. Just, there you go, it's done. Now we have it.
He does sort of... there is a tearing sound effect, isn't there?
Yes, but the vest is intact.
Oh, I see. Yeah, sorry. So that's unexplained.
And why does Richie pick up a condom? It's like just a gesture. He doesn't show it to the audience. Like, leave that alone.
It's so he can dangle it horribly, isn't it?
It's the have you caught anything yet? Isn't it? It's the setup for that bit of delightful dialogue.
It's a nice sense of depth of the set when he throws the vest into the water. You can see the splash and stuff. There's a couple of nice shots in this that just kind of stand out. I've already mentioned the ones before.
You do feel the size of it,
Now, when he catches the fish, I like the exaggeration of the size of the fish while holding the fish. It must be that big.
That's
bigger than what?
That's every fisherman in the world, isn't it?
But while holding it, it must be that big. I can see it. It's not that big.
That fish does look fucking disgusting. I mean, like, once it's allegedly cooked, but then Ade drops it into that shitty, scummy water and mixes it up with some grass matter and stuff.
Not seaweed, pondweed.
It just looks like soil and goodness knows what that's been added to it. It really is rank.
It looks worse than anything they've eaten before, be it the caviar or tea leaves. Eddie obviously manages to rectify the situation for himself and make himself a bit happier by downing half a bottle of scotch. Did you ever notice how much of that he's not drinking?
A lot of it slides down his side of his face,
Yeah.
For time, presumably, in that shot.
Doing it in one shot, isn't it? Otherwise... it's
It
not as
takes a
impressive.
fair bit of it in, but it can't be actual scotch,
And
can
it's
it?
half a bottle of scotch. No, it wouldn't be.
It'd be
No
a-
reason to
it'll-
be.
Apple juice?
Probably the apple juice usually is the thing, yeah. Sometimes cold tea for some reason. I never understand why they do that. I just drink apple juice. Them drinking is kind of a nice snapshot of their relationship, isn't it? Because Eddie drinks it all and passes out, whereas
Might as well
Richie...
lick it clean as well.
Yeah.
He like shakes the last few drops.
Just
in
has
his
the
mouth.
fumes, doesn't
Yeah.
he, Richie?
Whereas
Yeah.
Richie wants to play but get things socially wrong.
Well, that line of him, I'm going crazy, was
Yeah.
used in a compilation advert thing that BBC had for comedy. Do you remember BBC comedy? I just remember that bit. Ah, it's Richie.
Oh, as well as him saying terrific when holding an olive.
Maybe.
Yeah. I remember that, yeah.
What is the lighter that he shows off having? Like, all right, you can use my briquet. What is a briquet? Because he just gives him like a normal shitty lighter.
I think that's actually just a brand or a maker of shitty disposable lighters. They might be the refillable ones, I'm not sure.
Okay, well those ones.
That's why he
I
says
don't
you can
think-
only use it for half a second.
Yeah.
I see. Well,
The campfire rugby songs thing, though.
Yeah.
Like, again, very naff for Richie, but
Yeah.
it works, doesn't it? Because Richie just doesn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah.
But then you also do think, again, is this the childhood kind of scouts thing coming out in him, as opposed to he's never been round to fire singing
Yeah.
rugby songs, has
Yeah.
he? So it's again going back to his sort of childlike behaviour around it, and then sadly Eddie's passed out before he gets a chance to enjoy himself at all in this shithole.
So they get interrupted by a flasher on Wimbledon Common. Mr. Tent, the character, played by Rupert Bates, who was in the burglary episode.
As
Yes.
Mr. Wormwood, yeah.
Richie does seem as confused as we are that a flasher turns up.
Yeah.
As you do, I suppose, when
Yeah.
a flasher turns up. None's ever turned up for me, but actually, I tell a lie, I did once get flashed on a night out in Liverpool.
Oh,
Did you really?
Yeah. Well, I was indoors of
Yeah.
a McDonald's
And they
with my
went
mate
by-
at about 2 a.m. and
Did he have a
some
raincoat
drunk
on?
guy. No, just a guy was out with his mates, obviously.
Oh,
and
right, okay.
Just basically, waggled his bits in the
Well,
in the
luckily-
window in full view of me and my mate, and we probably did look a bit bemused.
Did it put
This
you
is
off?
more shock.
Did it put you off your McNuggets?
I wasn't eating McNuggets at the time, but I ordered some afterwards.
I find it odd that Richie seems to have found one of the only people in the world who has a smaller penis than him.
I love that. I love that he's actually
Yeah.
just quite delighted that, even
sure.
Richie hasn't decided to go flashing, because why would he bother with the tiny one?
Funny you mentioned Scouts, actually, because I was thinking about my time when I was a cub and then a Scout in this. When they're in the tent and Richie's talking and Eddie's trying to get to sleep, I remember this from Cubs and Scouts, there's always some absolute fucker who won't shut up.
Oh, mate, I've
And
written
just
down.
talks.
I was the guy.
All right, okay. What do you do when you get to bed? What are you reading? Ever been hang gliding? Shut up, we're trying to sleep.
I remember verbatim, not quite in bottom, saying, I can't think of anything else to talk about. It's like, yeah, there's the clue, mate. Shut your face.
They do it in Father Ted as well, don't they, with Father Noel
Oh, right.
in
yeah.
the caravan,
Right.
where he just keeps talking throughout the night, and he's
You know-
talking about campfire songs, etc. So again, it's that thing of someone who just doesn't want to stop the night and wants to keep chatting away.
You notice the burn scars are kind of show up a bit more now. There was a bit of passage of time on Richie's face, little red spots and stuff. Like nowhere near as severe as it should be, having your head on fire.
Yeah.
This episode has another, what I like to call badge of honour for bottom fans, much like the Lady Natasha full name. It's the nighttime, good night, sleep tight. Blah, 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 blah.
The bed bugs one.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. That's something I can't not say it. I think if someone says night, night, sleep tight, I'll be like, I'm going to have to say the rest of it.
Now, I remember, I thought I knew this word for word, but when I quoted it to you, you corrected me, because for ages I thought it was sorry busy bee, which...
Yes,
and-
it's
and-
saw a busy bee.
Which, of course, when you said to me, well, sorry, busy bee doesn't make any sense, to which my reply would be, the rest of it doesn't make sense. Fish, trousers, elephant, in Peking.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm the better bottom fan.
Go on then, Matt, do it.
Oh, okay. Night, night, sleep tight. Hope the bed bugs do not bite. If they do a poo, put it in a Cornish stew. Into the ambulance, dring, dring, dring. Fish, trousers, elephant, in Peking. Saw a busy bee. Tiddly. Daddy's an accountant just like me. Night, night, God bless.
Is it tiddle...
I'm still not asleep,
Is it tiddle-diddle-dee? I thought it was twiddle-diddle-dee.
Tiddly, twiddly, I'm not sure.
Oh, well, there you go. Just proves I'm a better bottom fan, then, doesn't it?
I think you're both incredibly sad. No, I always do the beginning bit. I
Yeah.
can't say that I've ever been able to do the full thing.
Well, they've got some worry of something being outside, so they set a fire inside the tent. That joke's fucking signposted with a neon flashing sign.
Your eyes are drawn to their faces, though, aren't they? I mean, the burn makeup is very good.
The goggle mask type thing
Yeah.
that Eddie pulls back.
Reminded me of the gas episode when Eddie
Yeah.
sets the gas on fire.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the explosion itself out of the tent is very reminiscent of that. But then the makeup on both of them. You know, Eddie gets it worse than Richie.
Well, I think he's a bit closer to the
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah, I love the detail that he tries to drink the paraffin as well before doing it as well. It's just like, don't drink
just
it.
quickly.
Yeah.
He's just such a desperate alcoholic.
Yeah.
And a great little bit of physical comedy in there where Richie can't use his hands to do anything to Eddie, so picks up a pan with his mouth.
Yeah,
Is it a
off
pan or a
camera.
ladle?
It's.
Oh, I thought it was like a
think
little
it's
pot.
Pan. I thought it was a little mallet first time I watched it, but no, it is a pan of
Oh,
some
is it?
kind.
It's
yeah.
tiny. I suppose like a little
Small,
mini
like-
camping stove.
Yeah, like a
kind of
milk jug
pan.
size one kind of
right,
thing.
Okay.
It's got a load of those little things hanging off his homemade backpack right at the beginning of the episode. Like he's got a sack and tin mugs and things all dangling. It's because he's seen someone do it. You know, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
practical. How scary is the silhouette of the flasher coming over? It's genuinely like...
It's like Nosferatu, isn't it? That creeping shadow that comes across. And the music is actually very, very creepy as well.
And the slower the shadow moves over, the more ominous and creepy it is.
And we've had the build-up of the thunder as well. And I think that's similar to the apocalypse thunder when you
Yeah.
get that kind of crackling
Yeah.
sound.
And those terrible owl sounds are a little bit creepy as well.
Yeah.
What's particularly horrible, in my opinion, about the zip coming down on the cock is the fact that the tent is visibly attached to him as it runs off.
Oh, I didn't notice until this time watching it. I've always just focused on Eddie pulling the zip down, but you see Richie in the background like going like, yes, get him.
Really egging him on,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Now, when the Flash is standing up just before he puts his old fella into the zip hole, I thought for a second it was Ben Elton.
What
He
the
looks-
actor or
yeah, the actor.
the little fella?
What he's got a little Ben Elton.
Little mini Ben Elton being shoved in the tent.
No, for some
Yes,
reason,
indeed,
it's
yes,
not.
indeed.
It isn't Ben Elton, but just quickly, I don't know, in makeup with long flowy hair. But
Really?
is it Ben Elton? No, it's not.
Just for sort of half a second.
Yeah.
Not a prolonged thing that you've always thought it was Ben or anything.
With his long straggly hair, it could almost be a beardless Bill Bailey.
It's the end.
It's an interesting little cameo for because
For Mr. Bates.
he was obviously in Bottom, but he wasn't really in Bottom in Burglary.
Never saw his face. I mean, we
So
could
he's a stuntman,
You
right?
barely
Yeah.
see his face
Oh no,
in
no,
this
he's
one.
the
I think he's
for a
the
second.
masked burglar, isn't he? He must be.
the one who that isn't Nigel from EastEnders. Yeah, the
Yeah.
one clinging outside.
Yeah, so you get to see his face and his arse in this one, but still no real dialogue.
So you're him. You get the call from the producer. We want you back. Oh, cool. Oh, is it a bit of a better role this time
Are we
than
going
last
to
time?
see more of my face this time?
we'll see much more of you.
Yeah. Almost all of you, in fact.
Don't be worrying.
Yeah. Will I get some more action in this one? Oh, you'll get some action, all right.
Have
But what about my lines? Not so much, just a manic
Laughter.
screen.
Yeah.
laughter. just mental
Yeah.
drunk.
Because in that way, this episode is pretty much a two-hander. Isn't it?
It is, yeah. I think.
It's a technicality that it's not.
It is thought that there's only 3 episodes where there's only the 2 of them, but
Yeah.
I would argue that
This is an
there's 4.
honorary two-hander. Also, is this the only one that doesn't end on a freeze frame? I noticed that the image
it
continues
gets-
to move.
Oh, maybe. Okay, but it is one of the minor injuries of the ending of an episode. I mean,
Yeah.
we've ended on a punch before in the first episode, which is pretty tame. They've been punched off of buildings. There's episodes where like he has his legs completely shattered. Just a little knock on the head. That's normally the end injury is the topper. The big like the finish him type thing. But this is he's got a lot worse during the episode.
It feels disappointing, considering, as you say, all that he's gone through prior. You feel like there should have been a bit more to the ending. We obviously didn't really know how to end
maybe.
it.
Yeah, if Richie had said, well, you know what, I made the bed up, and then Eddie just violently beats him to death with the mallet and then sets his body on fire.
Yeah, I was going to say Eddie's options here at the end. If he wanted to, he could string Richie up. He could lynch Richie from the nearest
Throw him
tree.
in the pond.
Throw him in the pond, drown him. He could cover him in the remaining paraffin and set him on fire. I think maybe just before Eddie left, he tied Richie to the tree so he couldn't get away. Richie obviously couldn't get out of the sleeping bag anyway. And then the Flasher returned looking for revenge and only found a helpless Richie.
This really would have been insensitive to broadcast after the murder, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If they'd gone with that ending. Wombles. I think we haven't really touched upon it's aged it a bit, hasn't it? The Wombles
Wombles
talk.
aren't really a thing anymore. Are they owned by the BBC? Wombles, were they on BBC?
I would say so, yes. I think they started out as a novel / children's books,
Right.
and then the BBC commissioned them in the 60s, late 70s,
Sure.
or early 70s. Yeah,
Similar look.
it's the idea of tidying up after yourself, isn't it, that they're trying to teach kids. But ironically, it meant that kids actually started littering,
Yes.
so that Wombles would have stuff to pick up. She actually ended up having kids littering everywhere. I think it does age bottom, but I do love the banter of the old Uncle Bulgaria and Orinoco.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you've ever watched the Wombles,
Sure.
I think an audience now watching it might be a bit confused.
Yeah, I guess from context you can kind of... It just says they're not real and, they're obviously a kiddish type thing. Kiddish? Childish?
For me, high point is the physical aspect of this episode. I really like the dart stuff.
Yeah, the
that
darts,
whole sequence.
It's a bit different. The rule of 3 normally would be like miss, hit, but it's 3 different hits. It's horrifically injured from the same weapon 3 times.
They've got very creative, haven't they, with using A, the outdoors, and B, more unusual weapons that they wouldn't have inside the flat.
Yeah. It's very telling that for me, beyond the fish drowns elephant in Peking, there's not a huge amount I can remember from this episode as being quotable in terms of dialogue. I don't think many people would ever select this as their favourite episode, even from series 2, let alone at all.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'd agree.
Because it's so different.
There are some really nice little bits of dialogue between them, and of course, like he mentions, like Emmerdale Farm yet again. Like there's a lot of kind of callbacks,
Right.
aren't there, to other things that have happened in that in their universe.
Angela, anything particularly niggled at you?
It's a very minor niggle, isn't it? But I suppose in the earlier fight, just the obvious way in which like he makes contact with the hobnob packet and then the slow-mo.
Right.
It doesn't feel very bottom.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like anything they've done before, and it feels very obvious. But then again, we've said repeatedly how much it's a bit like a cartoon, so the idea of a slow-mo thing, I can see why it's been written in, and
That
as you
noise
say,
is very Roadrunner.
Yeah, I think it's actually just the way it plays and the way they sort of follow it, but then they save it by the plopping of the hobnobs into the pond and the way it goes under. So it's a tiny little niggle.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's the studio backdrop, fake as fuck, and it genuinely annoys me.
Any country you could get away with it, it's England.
Yeah, I mean, they're commenting on the weather again, aren't they? It's going to rain later and all of that sort of thing. But
the problem is that the studio backdrop, and you get this with things like early episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, and you get it in other sitcoms, like in the Blackadder episode I referenced, is that it doesn't look like far away horizon sky. It looks like a nearby wall that's been painted grey.
I do think it's going back to Beckett, it's a comment on the voluntary aspect of them waiting, that they could just leave, where it ends with Eddie saying, right, well, I'm off. It is actually voluntary that we're here. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, his patience has been tested, and he's not carrying on this absurd charade any longer. And I just also wanted to ask, because it was only really on the rewatch that I thought about this. It's dog's toilet that's written on the sign.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because I think when I only ever noticed toilet and thought they'd put that sign up.
Toilet.
Right.
But is that a thing that used to happen in parks, that there'd be an area where dogs were invited to take a crap? And that was a dog's toilet sign? Because they wouldn't have brought that sign with them. That's been there.
That sign is there when they arrive, but the reason you don't really notice it, it looks 2D because it's not facing camera, it's sort of side on.
But I think they held back the reveal, and it's meant to be a big reveal that actually they've decided to camp in the dog's toilet.
Yes.
They've actually decided to camp where all the dogs take a crap.
I've learned something new. Yeah. That makes sense.
It only occurred to me when I was rewatching it this time around.
Because the tent doesn't even have a ground, does it? You see the grass when they're in the tent.
So
they
they're
are
literally laying
shit.
on dog shit.
Yeah.
Any particular sound effects for you guys?
Splatting eye impale.
Still makes me wince, that squidge. I would say, I mean, the owl sounds are pretty good.
Yeah.
They're actually quite satisfying, I think.
Owl sounds, and for me, dart in the back of the hand when it's been twisted, and you get that kind of like clicking noise.
Yeah, that's another one where visually it's not too extreme, and it's all sold in the sound effects and Rick's face. He's like horrified when he's had it in the back of his head just moments before. He took that better than the one in his hand. It's strange. It's not consistent, but he's odd.
When they do the dart being pulled out of the back of the hand gag and the rock falling on his foot, it never looks like he's holding the rock. It looks like it's actually held there by the dart. So I don't know how they did that. I don't know whether he was genuinely just holding it, but it doesn't look like he was.
Is it the same rock that they use as the potato from Holy? It certainly looks as
They had
heavy.
to save money, spent a lot on the set.
Okay, time for a quiz. I'm Quizmaster this week. I've got 10 questions lined up for Matt and Angela. Obviously, I don't want any complaining about the quality of the questions, which are all brilliant.
What do you mean, obviously?
Questions are great.
Well, we'll be the judge of that.
All right, guys, let's hear your fart noises, please. Angela, what are you going with?
I'm going to go with airy fart, which sounds like this.
I'm going with squeeze fart, which sounds like this.
Good stuff. Fingers on sphincters, guys. Question 1. In the opening credits, how many times do we see Eddie hit Richie with a newspaper? This includes before the bollock punch and after. Matt, that was you.
I'm going to go with 6 times.
6 times. There's no point even throwing it over to Angela because the answer is 6.
Wow, well done.
Well done, Matt. Okay.
Was that a quick sort of in your head thinking about it, or was that a...
No, it was just my instincts.
For trivia fans wanting the breakdown, he hits him 4 times before the bollock punch and then 2 afterwards. That's what you see anyway. There are other ones.
He could hit him while the bus is...
Exactly. There are vehicles that go past.
Right, okay.
Okay, question number 2. Richie and Eddie stay on a small, suspiciously studio-sized section of Wimbledon Common. But how big is Wimbledon Common in acres?
Oh.
Okay, Matt, I'll take one from you.
35 acres.
35 acres.
I don't know how big an acre is.
All right, Angela, I'll take one from you as well here.
I'm going to go with 34.
34. Okay, well, Matt is the winner there because the answer is 1,140 acres.
Went low.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know how big an acre is?
No.
No.
I will say that Wimbledon Common is apparently about 460 hectares, so if that helps.
If I'd have said that, would we have been
No.
in
We'll
business?
never know now, will we?
Which shop's carrier bag is Eddie carrying? That's Matt.
Safeway.
Is the wrong answer.
That was
I'll
confidently said and a complete guess.
I'll throw it over to Angela.
I'm going to go with Tesco.
Is also wrong. It's the shop Mace.
No,
Mace.
never heard of it.
That famous weapons shop.
They still exist. I did Google them. They're still around. Question number 4. Eddie sees what he thinks is a Womble. He even references Orinoco and Uncle Bulgaria. But can you name one other Womble? Angela.
Mrs. New Zealand?
No, it's not Miss World. Matt, any?
Okay, I'm going to go with Patch.
There's no Patch, I'm afraid.
They're all named after places around the world, aren't they?
Are they?
Oh.
That makes sense. Okay, well, yeah, some of the ones you could have had would have been Tobermory, Bungo, Tomsk, Wellington, Madame Cholet, Miss Adelaide, Alderney, Cousin Cairngorm, McWomble the Terrible, Shanxi, Stepney and Obidos.
Okay,
Damn.
didn't know any of them. He literally says the only 2 I know.
Yeah. Question number 5. After the hobnobs get knocked into the water, Richie and Eddie dry out 1 each on a stick over the fire. But how many hobnobs are hanging on the string and clothes pegs?
I'm going to go with 5.
Is not right. Angela, I'm going to throw it over to you.
6.
Is the right answer.
Yeah. I should have said 6 again. Same amount of punches.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, so at the moment it's 2 to Matt, 1 to Angela. And here we go, question number 6.
I know my knobs.
According to Eddie, how many hobnobs did the Womble eat? That's Matt.
A packet.
But how many? He does say a number.
27.
Fucking hell, that's the right answer. Yeah.
That was from subconscious memory.
Okay, well done. I really thought you were guessing there.
No.
Wow, okay, all right.
I don't think you get 27 in a
You
packet,
No,
do
you don't at all, no. Question number 7. Several actors have appeared in more than one Bottom episode as recurring characters. Rupert Bates appears in this episode as Mr. Tent, having previously appeared as Mr. Wormwood in Burglary. Who is the only other person to appear in 2 different Bottom episodes as 2 different characters? Angela, you were first buzzing in there.
Helen Lederer.
Is the right answer.
Yeah.
She is the nurse / receptionist, and then of course Lady Natasha.
Is the right answer. Question number 8. What time do Richie and Eddie go to bed? Matt's in there with the sphincter.
I'm going to go with 8 o'clock.
Is incorrect.
Can I
I'll
steal?
throw it over to Angela.
5:30.
Is the right answer. Bringing it to 3 apiece. Here we go. Question number 9. Question number 9. How many times has Richie hit Eddie with a pan in his mouth? Matt, yes, that's you there.
So I'm going to go with 6 again.
Is not right. Angela, I'll throw it over to you. You have to get the right number though.
8.
Is wrong, it's 9.
I was just counting it up in my head.
Okay. Right, which means it's still 3 apiece. Oh, this is tense. Here we go. Question number 10. Eddie leaves Richie on Wimbledon Common and heads back to Hammersmith. Assuming there's no night buses, how long, according to Google Maps, will the walk back to Hammersmith Broadway take him?
I mean, I don't think it's worth buzzing.
Take as long as it will take for me to tell you to fuck right off.
He's drunk as well, so it's going to be a stumble.
Well, I'm going to take what Google says is the walking time.
So, you want to know how long it's going to take Eddie to walk home?
From Wimbledon Common to Hammersmith Broadway. Yes.
Okay.
I'll take one answer from each of you, and whoever is the nearest...
I'm going to go with 3 hours.
Matt goes for 3 hours. Angela?
3 hours, 1 minute.
Then I'm afraid Matt wins it because the answer is 1 hour and 28 minutes.
Ooh.
But Eddie's drunk though, so, you know.
Yeah.
Could be
drunk. So it'll probably be about twice as much, which is 3 hours. And then I'm spot on.
All right. Well done, Matt.
So there we are.
What was your bonus question?
So there we are. That's 4 to Matt, 3 to Angela. I will do you the bonus question, but you both know the answer, which is, what does the sign on the ground say that they built the tent around?
Dog's toilet.
Dog's toilet. There we go, guys. So that's 4 to Matt, 3 to Angela. Matt wins this week. Well done, Matt.
Oh, I forgot what that feels like.
Has that put a bit of a spring back in your step when it comes to the quiz?
No.
Okay. Still as cynical and jaded as anything.
It's put 2 fingers up towards you from me. But there we go.
Someone doesn't like losing.
Geography questions. Fuck's sake.
So we've reached the end of the series, guys. This is series 2 in the can. We're going to be back next time with Bottom Live, because Bottom Live came out before series 3. It came out they basically took a year's hiatus. Then we'll be back with series 3, and then we'll do the rest of the Bottom Live episodes and the movie. People ask us this all the time. We've told you already in the first episode. We're doing the live ones. Don't worry. Well, I've no idea how it's going to go. I haven't seen it for years.
No, I'm looking forward to that, though. I love Bottom Live. Very good.
Yeah, I have watched them periodically over the years, but I'm looking forward to looking at it through an analytical perspective. And if anyone's got any comments, questions, any abuse, etc., do email in. We're at 11mafekingparade@gmail.com. On social media, we're at Talking Bottom across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I think that's all, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
They're the main ones.
That's enough, isn't it? Surely. No one does Snapchat. And we'd love to hear from you.
And if you're so inclined, give us a review on iTunes in the podcast sections. You'll be amazed how much it really does help us.
It will help if you give us a nice review, obviously. But give us a bad one if you want, and then we can... That's the only way we'll learn.
No, don't do that.
All right. Well, that's it for series 2.
See you next time for Bottom Live.
Yep. Goodbye.
Bye.